And that has to matter more than what society thinks about whatever they may have done.
Didn't get due process. I don't know why the Democrats are not angry about that. Because they're not citizens. We do not owe them the same thing. It has to mean something to be an American. To me, like the energy in defense of these gangbangers.
I'm not defending them.
If there are gang members and if they're killing or raping women in this country, they should absolutely be deported, and there should be deportation orders, and there should be a process, and there is a process to deport them. You are saying that every person that is here illegally is raping people, and that is not true. You're saying they're all part of these gangs.
But I really think it's important to really scrutinize what you just said. The idea.
Hello, everybody. Guys, let's get right into this panel. I just want to say I appreciate Van Lathan. He's just an intelligent dude that can just get things across very simply and calmly. Batya, on the other hand, she's out of her mind. I call her the female Scott Jennings, but I think soon we'll have to start calling Scott Jennings the male Batya. Check this out and we'll talk about it.
Tonight, a major setback to the president's deportation efforts. A Trump-appointed judge in Texas struck down the White House's use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport Venezuelans that they suspect to be gang members. The 18th century law gives the president the power to circumvent the courts and quickly detain or deport alien enemies after, quote, a declared war or, quote, any invasion or predatory incursion. Remember those words. Judge Fernando Rodriguez ruled that those words referred to, quote, an attack by military forces, and that is not how Trump is using it now. The law has only been invoked 3 times: the War of 1812, World War I, World War II, where it was infamously used to justify the internment of Japanese, Italian, and German immigrants. Now tonight, J.D. Vance, the vice president, says it's not the judge, but the White House, or it's not the White House, but the judge that is overstepping.
First of all, the judge doesn't make that determination whether the Alien Enemies Act can be deployed. I think the President of the United States is the one who determines whether this country is being invaded, and under the Biden administration it was. We're aggressively appealing this stuff. We do think that the higher appeals courts, and in particular the Supreme Court, is going to recognize immigration enforcement is a core function of the President of the United States. If you tell the President he's not allowed to deport illegal criminals, then you're telling the President he's not allowed to be the President. We reject that.
Joining us in our 5th seat at the table is civil and criminal attorney Dante Mills. He is a law professor at Temple University. Dante, you know, I want people to listen to what he said there, J.D. Vance. He's essentially saying only the president gets to decide whether this act can be used in the way that he wants to use it. But he also then says that the judge is saying you can't deport people, which is not what the judge is saying at all. He's just saying the use of this particular act may not be, in this circumstance, the way that you can deport people. Tell us more about Marbury versus Madison and whether judges have a role in interpreting the law.
The judicial branch, their job is interpretation of the law, and that's exactly what they did here. What they said is this law requires an invasion or act of war, and we interpret that to mean you have to actively be at war. You can't, as Donald Trump says, come down an escalator and say, oh, people are coming into our country, raping our women and killing us, and that means it's an act of war. No, it has to actually meet that definition, and that's the court's job. The president has the right to decide his agenda and kind of influence public policy, but when it comes down to the application of law, that's the court's job, and that's what they did here.
Can I debate this point? Because I understand your point, and you and I have a disagreement about these individual district court judges.
It's not a point. Dante doesn't mess around. He's an attorney. He's a professor of law. He's just telling you the facts of the case. Like, he's not a pundit like you, paid to spew garbage.
But when you think about what's happened in this country, millions of people have come in. It's the biggest invasion in the history of the United States. We've never been invaded this way, number one.
Scott?
These illegal aliens, and they are predatory. It is an incursion, and I would ask you to ask any of the families who've lost loved ones if they think maybe that we are at war with the people who have come here, who have committed violent acts, who have murdered people, who have raped people, who have human trafficked people. It is a disaster what's happened in this country, and the president is trying to pull every lever that's on the books to take care of it. And these individual judges are overstepping. If what you're essentially saying is that the president, who is the commander-in-chief, cannot determine when we are being invaded. An individual district court judge is going to decide that? No, thank you.
Can I just ask a simple...
Again, these immigrants, undocumented immigrants, commit crimes at a lower rate than American citizens. To be calling them invading and constantly making this connection with violence and these disgusting crimes and showing a picture of a young girl that was violated in some way, one way or another, by an undocumented immigrant, just so disgusting when the facts go against you. It's all about fear-mongering. It's all about scaring the crap out of people about these brown people. Let's just be real.
Question. Who gets to decide whether the United States is at war or not?
The president, in my opinion.
No.
If we're being invaded, I want the commander-in-chief to know.
Scott, no. It's actually the Congress.
When you're asking if we're being invaded.
I'm asking.
You want to call Congress and see if we're being invaded?
I'm asking a basic constitutional
We'll be taken over
question.
before they ever get to the committee.
Who gets to decide whether the United States is at war? The answer is Congress.
I'm talking about if we're being invaded.
When the president says we're at war, he has to
show we're actively at war,
and
not
really
a
what he needs to do is go to Congress.
Well, you guys discuss it in committee. We'll let in another 20 minutes.
Wait a second, though. I thought the genius of our system was that we weren't beholden to one guy's opinion. That the genius of the American system of government was that we had 3 co-equal branches, and in those co-equal branches, decisions were made about how we go about doing things. Now, we want to tear that to shreds so that we can kowtow to one guy's opinion, then we are in a monarchy. We're being ruled.
He's the commander-in-chief.
Did you guys have the same problem with the president authorizing strikes on the Houthis on the grounds that Congress hadn't authorized this war? You didn't, because we understand that the president has a job, and his job is to protect the citizens of this country. We know that Tren de Aragua is deeply embedded in the Maduro regime.
Okay, hold on a second.
We know that there is...
Actually, we don't know that.
Of course we know that.
And actually, there's reporting that even this administration analyzed that very question, and they found that actually Tren de Aragua was not being directed to come into the country by the Maduro regime. So the idea that that is...
That's not what I said, but they are deeply embedded in the highest levels of that government.
Okay, even if that were true, what is the distinction between strikes, and this is actually a big question that the United States has faced many times, and many people will debate this, right? So what's the distinction between strikes and whether the United States is actually at war with an entity or a nation? And there is a distinction. Now, nobody is saying here Trump can't deport people, because Barack Obama deported a lot of people.
And that's
Sochi.
Yeah,
You remember this.
Yeah.
He deported a lot of people, and he did so based on the existing law. It is possible to do.
It's not an
It's
applicable law.
That's right. Go ahead.
Because
as a lawyer, I would like
Because
to
there's
answer
a
this.
determination that law has to be used at wartime when there's
I'm
an
sorry, but
invasion.
war's different than it was in 1812.
No, we cannot use colloquialisms to say, oh, we're generally at war.
The
They're
Houthis
invading
are not a
us.
country,
That's
and
not
yet
how
we're
it works.
bombing them.
But
It's
let's
not
be
how it
clear
works
about this.
anymore.
Nobody
We're
is
being
saying
invaded
that Trump
every
doesn't have
day.
the
Well, we
ability
were.
to
Trump fixed
deport
it.
people. He has the ability to deport people, and he should, right? There was a lot of people coming in that should not be here. He has the right to do that. But he's trying to use this act to get around due process. And the court is saying this act does not apply. They're not telling him not to deport. They're saying use the process that's in place because this act does not apply.
As much bureaucracy and red tape as possible.
No,
It's not bureaucracy.
It's not
red tape.
It's the law. What we're trying to do is use the law. The law. I mean, look, is it such a big problem to say you can do things, but you have to do them lawfully? There's a process.
We
to
think
them.
this is lawful.
But it's not.
No, but the
though.
court just said it's
one
not.
judge, one stupid judge, and I want to see what the rest of them say.
You know it's stupid.
Why
You know
is
what else
the
that's
judge
for?
stupid?
I
Because he
guess we have to
disagrees with
remind
the
everybody
assessment
here
of
that
Donald
Trump
Trump.
appointed this judge.
I don't care.
Okay?
Again, it
so this
doesn't
is a
matter.
Trump-appointed judge.
But also
He's
his
not
ruling only
infallible.
extends
Judges
to
make
his
stupid
district,
decisions all the
right?
time.
Well,
Yeah,
okay,
so the ruling's
how about
not
this?
actually that
So
big
you
of a
say the
deal.
judge is stupid. How do we know that?
guys.
How do we know that the president is stupid?
I'm sure that's your opinion.
Well, it certainly is.
But he won the election. And
So
you
what
don't-
does that
I don't
mean?
think anybody, listen, I don't think anybody is stupid.
Think about his logic there. Van Lathan is too smart for Scott. He called the judge stupid, but the guy who appointed him was Trump. Then he said, well, that's your opinion. This guy is such an idiot. Do you see how he argues like a child? Someone in my comments called him Scott Jennings, Scott Toilet Paper, which I thought was hilarious. It's pretty damn good. Simple, but very spot on. Like, the arguments he makes here. Did you say the guy is stupid? He was a Trump-appointed judge. Like, nothing works. Even when he's Trump-appointed. If it was Biden appointed, he's corrupt. If Trump appointed him, he's stupid. But Trump is the smart one.
But I think all three branches have the right to operate the way they want. I think the President of the United States has the right to operate based on his opinion because he's voted in. But the judicial branch has the right to interpret the meaning of the law the way they see it.
Can I
That's
ask
their
you a
right.
question? Let me
And
ask you a question.
to make proof of requirement. Due process
This is
of
a key question.
requirement.
What if another group of people, say not illegal aliens, but just some other group from somewhere else, actually came to the shores of the United States, not a nation, but say a group, any kind of group, and actually did come ashore and try to invade, I don't know what else you would call it, the United States? Would you run to court and ask a federal judge if the President of the United States can we defend the nation now?
But that's
can
not
we
what-
stop
that's
the?
not what we're talking
It
about.
is.
You're
They're
conflating
coming
two different
across.
issues.
They're
You were
coming
also,
across
you
the
were
border.
also
doing that.
generalizing here. You were
Yes.
talking about, yes, I agree with you. I agree with you, Scott.
But what's the
That hold on,
difference?
listen
What's
to
the
me.
difference?
Because there will be a
If they're-
declaration of war
if
and then the
they're-
act would
if
how
they're-
quickly.
If there
Hold
are
on,
gay
Scott and
members
Dante, let
and
me
if
let
they
you
are
out.
killing or raping women in this country, they should absolutely be deported, and there should be deportation orders, and there should be a process, and there is a process to deport them. You were saying that every person that is here illegally
Yes.
is raping people, and
No,
that
I
is
did not
not
say that.
true.
You lied.
Yes,
You're
you're
lying.
saying they're
You're
all
lying.
part of these gangs.
lying.
They
Well,
all,
you're-
that-
you're-
this is,
you're-
they're
you're-
invading
you're-
our
you're-
country. They're doing all these things.
You're certainly
They are
associating
not.
them.
They're not all violent, but they are all
not all
criminals.
violent.
But
They're
they
not
are
all
all- but
violent.
they are all
And
criminals.
everybody, whether they are 2 years old or whether they are 90 years old and have been in our country the entire time, they deserve a process. The criminals.
I'm sorry,
the
what
criminals
process did they
should
follow to
leave.
get here? The process of breaking our laws?
Well, because there is a law, there are laws in order, and there are deportation proceedings to get these people out of our country.
Listen how long
the
you want this to last.
99-year-old who was here
It'll
did
last
not invade
forever.
our country.
It'll last
Batia,
forever.
let me.
He's so disgusting, and this is the reason they don't want due process. They want to be able to. There's no way for them to do it for 20 million people. They want to be able to point at people and say, they're out of here. They're dangerous. They're in a gang members. Look, they're gang members. Look at their tattoos on their hands. These people are unbelievably dangerous. He's a racist. There's time after time that I've proven on this channel how he will defend Jewish people. But when asked about what Trump said about Haitians eating cats and dogs, he stood silent, I kid you not, for 30 seconds and would not push back and threw a tantrum. Would not call it racist. This guy is despicable. I know what he thinks of people of color. He wants these people to be able to yank off the streets and deported with no due process. This is all this is about. It's not about keeping criminals here. Why the hell would Democrats or us on the left, why the F would we want criminals and chaos? Like what? We want Mad Max type of environment? Like are you really that stupid, Trump supporters? It's about due process. It's about having your day in court. That's it. You absolute fools.
Let you get a word in.
Well, to me, like the energy in defense of these gangbangers.
I'm not defending them. I just said people said their gang should leave.
I feel like that poem where it's like, first they came for the guy who beats his wife, and I said nothing because I don't beat my wife. And then they came for the guy who said, I love killing Jews. And I said nothing because I don't love killing Jews. And now they came for the gangbangers, and I said nothing.
Can I say something real quick?
Hold on a
Do
second.
you know why that triggers me? That triggers me because I come from a place where a whole bunch of people, they're American citizens, but they're thrown away. They're thrown away because they might have committed crimes, because they got in trouble when they were young.
You should be the angriest that they care about the gangbangers and not those
No,
people
what I
who
care
believe
about
they should
is
be
that
deported
there
are
is a
being
system of laws that is supposed to protect the due process of those people.
Yeah.
And that has to matter
I
more
am
than
angry
what
about
more
that.
than what
I'm
society
angry that there are black
thinks
people
about
in
whatever
prison
they
who
have
didn't
done.
get due
Hold on a
process.
second, hold
I don't know why the Democrats are
So
not
why is it
angry
okay for
about
anybody
that.
else to not get
Because
due
they're not
process?
citizens. We do not owe them the same thing.
Wait, okay.
It has to mean something to be an American.
Batia, hold on a second. I mean, I get the passion, but I really think it's important to really scrutinize what you just said. The idea that people do not have the right to the processes of the law just because they are not citizens is your opinion, but that is not how the law works. You know that, right?
The president has the right to deport
But
people.
okay, answer my question. You understand that that is not how the law works, that it is not true that just because your citizenship status does not mean that you do not get the same rights to legal process as everybody else in this country.
Everyone should
I
come
think
here.
the country
Everyone should
is.
come here.
I think that the country. I'm answering your question. I am answering your very specific question.
Okay.
I think the country right now is very split. In fact, I just saw a poll yesterday from WIC, which was put out by 2A. The country is split almost 50-50 on this exact question. How much due process, how much of our investment and our money and our courts and our time do we owe people who committed a felony as their first act on U.S. soil? The United States of America, the people of this country are currently asking themselves that question every single day.
So what?
Okay. The opinion.
And guess who's
listen,
winning on it? It's Trump.
I think that
Trump
that's,
is still beating
listen,
the Democrats on immigration.
Listen,
so he's winning
I think
this argument.
I just want people to understand that your opinion about this, honestly, the opinion of half of the United States about this is totally fine and valid. But the question is, what does the law say about the question? And we do live in a nation of laws, and that has to mean something.
What should it say,
Because,
though?
listen,
What
if you
should it
want,
say?
if you
What's the
want
right
it-
thing to do?
If
But he
you
used
want,
the
hold on,
law.
if you want the law to say something different, you know what the process is? Amend the Constitution.
I think the process is the
Change
president.
The law.
The president, in
That
his
is
role
the
as
that
commander
is
in
the
chief,
process
is
that is
finding
available
an
to you.
existing law
But Scott,
to try to protect us. I mean,
Scott,
what if 20 million more come
Scott,
here? You'll never get them out.
I know.
The
It
country will
feels
be
like we
overwhelmed.
went down a cul-de-sac.
It's not.
On the
It's a
law
vital
here.
debate.
Because I think,
law.
but that is fundamentally what this is. What we are talking about here.
But Trump
together.
didn't break the law. He used it. There was
No,
one
he did break
judge.
the law because
There's
it does-
one judge.
He used a law that
One
does not
judge.
apply to
One
this.
judge ruled that of all the judges.
But you are saying.
I have to pause it. Because she just said a bunch of stuff there. She truly has a hand countable amount of brain cells. Think about what she said there. What she said to Van earlier. She was essentially using an argument about racism done to black people because they didn't get their due process as a way to justify racism against brown people. That's the simplest way I can put it. To tell a black man to his face, basically, yeah, I know your people have been denied due process. And it's why you should be angry that people are fighting for due process for these brown people. She's just an effing racist, guys. It's no surprise to me that she completely supports the genocide on, what a surprise, brown people. And let's just be real. If this was happening to American citizens, black American citizens, you think Batya here and Scott Jennings will be fighting for them and fighting for their due process? Van is no fool. He can see the parallels of what the Republicans are doing here and the targeting of Latinos only, like we're the only ones who immigrated here illegally. Trump already spoke about deporting American citizens to El Salvador prison. And I said this before, who do you think are the first group of people he's going to go after once he's done with undocumented immigrants? If you don't think it's black and brown people, American citizens, you have another thing coming. And I can tell you the first city they will go to, because they constantly demonize this place and try to show black people in a negative light and propagandize people. If you guess Chicago, ding, 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 you guessed correctly. They will use the same exact arguments. They are gangbangers. Look at their tattoos. Look at this young person who was recently a victim to one of these evil people. It's the same racist, vile playbook over and over. Just scare the population. I mean, they have been doing this to black people for literally hundreds of years. They're still doing it. The constant demonizing and scaring people to believe outright vile garbage is extremely dangerous.
Essentially, that you don't like the way that the law is applied in this instance, and you would like to change it, which is fine.
I'm not saying that, Abby. I'm saying every other district judge has ruled in Trump's favor on
That's
it.
not true. That is absolutely not true. That is not true. Nobody, no other judge, and let me clarify this. This is important. No other judge.
Let me let Dante finish.
No other judge has issued an opinion on this specific issue.
Yes, they've not ruled against it.
No. What the Supreme Court said was the judge that it was in front of did not have the authority to make this decision. It wasn't in the right district, so he sent it to Texas. This is the first judge that's ruled on this actual case of whether or not this rule or this law applies, the Enemies Aliens Act. And they said it does not apply. This is the first time it was ruled on that.
6 other federal judges have issued provisional orders on this issue of whether and how, but really specifically how.
But it's
how
a
the Trump
constitutional question, though,
administration
because they
can
think,
deport these people.
Because you all are debating the statutes and the judge's right to oversee a statute. What the Trump administration is arguing is that this is a foreign policy issue, and we have sole right under the Constitution to execute American foreign policy. So they actually see themselves as above this conversation about individual judges micromanaging.
And I think
foreign
that's a
policy.
novel interpretation. We got to go, but that's, I mean,
you've
Scott,
heard multiple officials
Scott,
say that.
I think you would acknowledge this is a novel interpretation of.
I would add proper as well.
Okay, novel interpretation of the use of this particular statute for
And the only
immigration.
purpose of this use of this statute is to get around due process. Everything else is the same,
I think
except
the
for this
purpose is to
statute, you
protect
don't
American
need due
citizens from
process.
the invasion.
And why do we want to get around that?
All
We
right.
don't need to.
Dante Mills, thank you as always.
I'm going to leave it there, but let me just say a couple things here. Hispanics who voted for Trump, this spiel is for you. Are you not seeing how they're trying to do our people? I implore you to open your mind for a few moments. Do you not see how you share more with black people than you may have been led to believe? And by the way, guys, this shouldn't have to be said, but you don't have to be black or Hispanic or whatever to understand racism and cruelty, to push back against it. Wrong is wrong. I don't think I can make it any more simple than that. Someone's characters and beliefs should matter. You can't separate those things and say to yourself, well, I only care about the economy or something like that. Or say to yourself, I didn't vote for him because he's racist. I voted for him for the economy. Because what you end up doing is, yes, voting also for a racist that thinks you're subhuman, you idiot. And that is now shaving our people's head and deporting us to a prison in El Salvador with no due process. They did it to a couple American citizens by accident. By accident, or so they say. Like, guys, if I could have one goal on this channel, it's to get brown people to vote like black people do. It's important that we stand united in times like these and times not like these. None of these issues get corrected if we don't stand together. There's just not enough of each of us. Your issues are my issues should be the mentality. At least that's how I see it. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think about all this. Please like the video, subscribe. Really helps the channel out. And I'll catch you in the next one.